Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Seattle Seahawks Detroit Lions breakdown. What a game! That was awesome to watch. I really loved, most every minute of it. That was a great game to watch on both sides. I'm gonna break down everything that happened, both Lions and Seahawks, how they performed, as well as some other aspects of the game. I needed that so much because if we had lost, if we had been crushed this week, I'd be here talking about Caleb Williams, and him potentially being a Seahawk. But nope, Seattle pulls out the win, so I have the victory jersey on. My DK Metcalf jersey is in the washer right now, so this is Jamal Adams, who I love, and I hope he comes back soon. Anyway, without further ado, let me get to the breakdown of the game. I'm going to start with the Detroit Lions because there should be no shame if you're a Lions fan or the Detroit Lions. Like, that was a battle back and forth. I wouldn't be worried at all, or at least mostly I wouldn't be worried. Jared Goff's not going to throw too many more interceptions like that. Like, that pick six was huge. So I wouldn't worry about that a whole lot. Like that's not going to happen a lot this season. So it's I like it's just one of those mistakes that hurts. It does hurt that it's a conference opponent, but it's not divisional. I would assume the Lions are going to have better records, so it's not like it's come back and haunt them like it did last year with conference record or anything. I think I'll win the division. Seattle won't, so it's not going to matter. The one thing I would be worried a ton about for the Lions is the pass rush. That was something I talked about a ton, or at least a lot in the video I did on Saturday. I talked about the Lions pass rush. One of my keys to that game was going to be how often the Lions get home, how often they get to Geno, especially against a backup offensive line, a team missing their starting tackles. That was kind of my okay. Look at that, and that'll kind of dictate the game. And the Lions didn't really get to Geno Smith. They like Aiden Hutchinson didn't get him. The only sack they came up with was that horrible play by Geno. His only real like dark spot on the game as a whole. So like the Lions pass rush did not play well. Like it was pretty bad. But I don't know how much to worry about that if you're a Lions fan. Is that just a reps issue? Is that a gel issue? Is that like, hey, it's still early in the season? I don't know. But I'd be a little worried about that. But the offense overall for the Lions looked really good. I understand the offensive line for the Lions was kind of banged up, which is why Seattle was able to get some pressure in the second half. I will talk about that. But I like watching the game because I watched the whole thing. I was terrified every time that Lions offense stepped on the field. I was pretty scared. I was like, they're gonna drive down the field. They're gonna score a touchdown. Like, so you have a scary offense, Detroit. Like, there's no doubting that. That is a scary unit. That is, it's really good. There's some injuries you're gonna have to deal with. But my only real thing that I kind of noticed, they need a number two wide receiver. Uh, is it Jameson Williams, who they drafted in 2022? He's suspended, so maybe when he comes back, he'll be able to provide that. But overall, Detroit, I wouldn't feel too bad about this one. You know, it's still early in the season. Again, I know it's a conference opponent, but it's early in the season. You guys will be fine. Offense looks good. Need to work on the defense a little bit and maybe bring in a wide receiver for the number two spot. But other than that, you guys played a really good game. It was so much fun to watch, and I like a note I put down later is I'd love to see this again in January. I would absolutely love to see a rematch later on. So now let's get to my Seahawks. Much less gloom and doom this week on my team. I'm so happy. The offense! Holy shit, the offense. Oh my goodness. Geno looked fantastic. He didn't look like perfect or anything. Again, there was that sack early on in the game. There was also, I am still a bit worried about the offensive explosiveness, but Gino looked sharp. He looked really, really good. And I really loved the way he played, well over 300 yards passing, threw a couple touchdowns. So I really like that out of Gino. And the offensive line really stepped up in this game. You look at Stone Forsythe and Jake Curran. Hope I pronounced that right. They both looked really good against a potentially scary Lions pass rush. So I was very, very impressed by that, and I'm hoping that that's a sign of things to come offensively with the offensive line. Being able to protect Geno a lot better because he was harassed last week, and a lot of it had to do with playing Aaron Donald, greatest defensive player on the planet, other than maybe Mark Parsons. That's a different video. But I really like the way they looked. I'm still a bit worried about explosiveness, as well as the run game. So there's still some things I'm worried about offensively. It was not perfect by any means, but it was a gutsy performance offensively. I thought Gino really looked good, and he brought him back into it. So overall, I'm very happy with that. Defensively, we still got some things to work on. I think the pass rush was better this week, and it's against a better offensive line, or at least we think, because I think the Rams only gave one sack up against the Niners. The Niners have a much better pass rush than Seattle, so the Lions' offensive line could look really, really good this year. It could be great this year, so maybe that's like, okay, that's why they didn't look good. This could be a good pass rush unit. It's just we played two brilliant offensive lines first 2 weeks. I don't know, but it looked better, got more pressure on Jared Goff, especially with, Trey Brown having a sack, as well as the pick six on the next play. I did like what I saw from the pass rush group. And again, against a great offensive line. Devin Witherspoon made his debut, the 5th overall pick. He looked solid. He looked really good. He had that big 4th down stop. The only real thing that I saw was that big slip up on the flea flicker. Other than that, he looked really good. I was impressed. There's obviously things he's going to work on. Reps are going to help him really move into it. But for his first game, he wasn't torched. So that's promising. That looks really good. There are some injury concerns overall for the entire team, not just offensively, because again, the tackles. Is that a? Oh my god. Anyway, you also look at Reek Woolen. He suffered a rib injury. Pete Carroll put it after the game as he sore, or I think it was yesterday. He said it's just a soreness thing, so hopefully it's minor and Reek comes back soon. Jamal Adams is still yet to make his debut this season or return at all. I'm hoping he comes back soon. DK had an apparent concussion or something. I don't think it was a concussion, but he suffered an injury early on. He came back in. Hopefully that's nothing, and it was just for the game kind of thing. But there are some injuries that are starting to stack up a little bit. It's not as bad as other teams like Baltimore where there's so many injuries. So I'm not super concerned yet, but there are some pretty big injuries so far. Thankfully, none of them have been major, so we've dodged a bullet so far for the first 2 weeks. But let's hope that we kind of stay that way. Let's hope the injuries don't start to pop up. The run game, I'm a little concerned. I know it was against, it's backup tackles and things like that, but I'm still concerned with how quickly Seattle's moving away from the run game. Kenneth Walker was damn near Offensive Rookie of the Year, and you also drafted a rookie in the 2nd round. Like, why are we not running the football a little bit more? I feel like that's a bit of a nitpick because we won, but I saw the same thing in week 1. Like, that's part of why the offense struggled so much in the second half. So I'd like to see him stick with the run game a little bit more. Hopefully they take my advice. Not that they'd ever listen, but yeah, I'm a bit concerned about that. Hopefully there's a turnaround that way. Maybe it'll just be hey, once our tackles come back, we'll be fine. But overall, I thought that was a very, very good win. I thought it was a great bounce back from an ugly game against the Rams. I loved a lot of what I saw, and hopefully Seattle can keep this up in the future. But there's still some things to work on. Obviously, it was a perfect game. But hey, the schedule lightens up a bit. So maybe Seattle will, you know, keep their momentum moving forward into the bye week, which is only 3 weeks away. There's some other notes that I need to talk about, though. The ref ball was really, really bad. I thought it was terrible. Like, some of the calls were ticky-tacky at best. I thought the intentional grounding was terrible, you know, where you get that "I'm talking to America" quote. That was a really bad call. So, there were some terrible calls on both sides. However, that last play of the game, I'm gonna have to agree with Lions fans. There was probably holding, and I feel like there's no excuse to not review it. I understand that they were kind of letting people play, but while at the same time, not really. But refereeing as a whole has already been not good this year. Like, it has been pretty bad. So, hopefully this isn't a recurring thing. But the funny thing about bad reffing that I notice is that when it's your team that's benefiting from it, it's not an issue. But so it gets swept under the rug a lot. Like, I kind of consider just not really acknowledging how terrible the reffing was this weekend. But I feel like just for the sake of partial neutrality, because I am donning Seahawks gear, I thought I'd bring it up at least. But it's got to get better because it did have a bit of hand in the game. Again, there were some really bad calls on both sides, but I just think, you know, it's so common that it's almost a part of the game we have to accept. Outside of that, this felt like a playoff game. It absolutely did. I watched the entire game, beginning to end. It was wild in Detroit. I haven't seen a crowd like that from them in a very long time. It did genuinely feel like I was watching a playoff game, and the intensity was there. The play was there too. That was a great game. I've kind of already talked about that, but I loved it. So again, I'd love to see this matchup again in January. That would be a lot of fun to see. And then just another side note, if the Seahawks make the playoffs and win a playoff game, or if Geno Smith's the Pro Bowler this year, I'll get his jersey. I know it's not really anything having to do with the game, but he's been such a fun story to follow as a Seahawks fan, and one that makes me like pretty excited to be a fan of this team, where it's like, hey, we brought this guy, we watched this guy go from, man, we're going to tank because our quarterback is Geno Smith, who's not good, to this guy is our, I don't want to say franchise quarterback, but he's being paid like it, he's playing like it, so I'll get his jersey if he makes the Pro Bowl or the Seahawks win a playoff game. So outside of that, that's all I have for this video. I really, really like that game. And on to Carolina. Like, that's it. Detroit, don't worry too much about it. I wouldn't. Again, this is a tough matchup between these. There's always fireworks here, at least over the past couple of years. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.